Welcome back to Voices from the House of Zophiel. Today we have Adrien Mastrosimone.
Hello.
And hello. It's a wonderful, wonderful guy. We love him very much at Zophiel. And I just want to share a few things about him. He's really quite remarkable. He is one of probably the most talented users of tarot and an adept magician who weaves magic within his practice, which I have actually seen happen. Adrien discovered tarot at 11 years old in Marignane. Is that right?
Marignane.
Marignane in France. Captivated by Grimaud Marseille Deck in a local bookshop. When the owner discouraged him, he said, "You don't want to know. You don't want to do. You don't even know what to do with them. And actually, you shouldn't buy them." It only fueled his determination. And of course, when we're denied things, we want to do things even more, don't we? So he saved his pocket money and purchased a deck, beginning a lifelong passion. Now, within 30 years of experience, Adrien specialises in Marseille Tarot for everyday matters, using a straightforward and intuitive approach informed by folklore. Is that pataphysics?
Yeah.
Pataphysics. And Western Esotericism. He has studied with Philippe Camoin, heir to the original Tarot Marseille makers, firmly establish him within the French school of tarot reading. He regularly teaches classes on Marseille and Rider-Waite-Smith, as well as workshops using tarot to improve daily life. Adrien also uses the pendulum for dowsing, healing, and manifestation work. And I just want to add, as a spiritual guide and transpersonal coach in Vienna, Adrien helps clients move from indecision to action. His unique Dancing the Tarot workshop fuses tarot constellations and embodiment work, drawing on his background as a professional dancer and singer. So, Adrien, welcome.
Thank you for having me. That's a big introduction you've given me here.
Well, I just want to furnish people with the details about the speakers we normally have, and I think that it just helps us dive into what you're going to say much more easily. And we've got questions for you today, and hopefully, and I'm pretty sure that all that meaning and all that understanding from you will surface magically to the top. Okay, so
Hopefully.
I know. Well, I think the first question I have is pretty obvious, but it's about what attracted you to this. So, how did you become involved with the tarot? How did you get interested?
How did I get interested? It's funny. I think it's, some people say, talk about past lives. I can't really talk about past lives because I don't have an experience of past lives. What I have an experience of is that I like to buy things. And I come from a generation where my parents would ask me to go buy their pack of cigarettes, at the tobacco shop. Yeah. And next to the tobacco shop was a library where you would buy books and magazines, and I would always like to go there and look at the magazines, and they had this glass window with tarot decks, and it was fascinating. I always had these fascinations for crystals and tarot. For some reasons from a young age. And I was really, really curious. And as you said in your introduction, I kept looking at this Grimaud pack of cards. And why? Because really, when I grew up, that was the only thing that was really available as far as tarot, where I grew up next to Marseille. We didn't have all these different decks that are available today. And so I was really, really curious and fascinated all the things you could do with it. And, the shopkeeper really was trying to get me away from that glass cabinet because, I don't know, maybe he was scared that I was a delinquent and wanting to, steal them or something. And like you said in your introduction, of course, when somebody says you can't have it, then I wanted to have it even more. So I made a deal with my parents, and I said, okay, I'll go buy your cigarettes, but I need to keep the change. And over time, I kept enough money of the change of cigarettes to be able to buy myself a pack of cards. And it's this thing where you just open the cards and you look at the images and you don't understand. I was barely a teenager, and these meanings are so complicated and so deep that it took me really, really a long time to get my head around some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
but it's I guess that what started then is still going on today, and it's part of my life. And I love all tarots today. I think it's very interesting to see where the root comes from and what is being made with this incredible deck of cards today. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, I share that love of tarot with yourself because I find that the imagery, what it seems to do, is so enriching and absorbing. I mean, you do mention that really your focus is within the Marseille pack, although you do mention Smith Waite.
Hmm.
Um, why was that? I mean, what was the shift? Because I know a lot of people, and this includes myself, started out with Smith Waite stuff, and I still use them heavily.
Hmm.
Um, and yet, I remember meeting you, and I gathered very quickly your passion for this deck. And I think for our listeners, I think it would be really interesting to know why.
So there's a few reasons. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to talk very passionately about the Marseille Tarot. However, I still love the what I call the English school, the later development of tarot. Why am I so passionate about the Marseille Tarot? Well, first of all, it's my roots, right? I was born in a small town next to Marseille. And second of all, what I love about the Marseille deck is that there's the absence of ego in it, right? What do I mean? Is that we think that the deck was created around the 1500s, maybe 1600s. We're always discovering we're discovering more decks that are older, and so the history of tarot is a little bit it's not so clear.
Right.
And so what happens from, let's say, 1500 to 1900, it's an oral tradition, right? It's not somebody that wrote a book that said, this is how it's supposed to be read. This is what I think. This is how it has to go. So this oral tradition has been passed on, and there's been a development. So you really have to make the effort to step into these cards, to understand them, and
Right.
the work is a bit different, right? It's a bit different, and it's
Yeah.
really, I like to see it as the root of the tarot, how the tarot develops after. And the thing is that the minor cards are a little bit tricky for some people to read, but the reality is that they offer you a wider range of interpretations. The Smith Waite is much, you would say, inverted quote, easier to read with because the images are
Yeah.
kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
And with the Marseille deck, you just have to work a little bit harder. But if you get that, then after you can read anything.
Right. Yes. Yes. And I think that, I mean, that the whole line of tarot journey, it has a lot of branches to it, from the Middle East, although I don't particularly like that term. It's very Western
Mhm.
orientated, but countries like this to some roots in, ideas of other belief systems essentially, and there's bits and pieces of information in there. But I generally feel that in terms of things like metaphors and symbols, they are still about stories, right? So they still carry those stories and essences of stories, and of course they belong to us at
They
not
do.
necessarily a conscious level, but it's an unconscious level, and yet it still speaks, doesn't it? And I like the thing you said about the fact that it's less of an ego in it. You're kind of not forced into a meaning, right? You kind of find that it's much more fluid. And I think that's what I'm really beginning to appreciate Marseille for that. And I tell myself this, that I still got some way to go because I haven't fully connected because I'm so used to the other one. But yeah, um, I like that. I like that it offers many ways to create what meaning is, and I think that's really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
To understand these cards, it's not about reading in the book what they mean.
Mm.
It's about understanding how they are built, how they are drawn, right? And the way the deck has settled, let's say 1760, which is the Nicolas Convert, which is the standardized, Marseille Tarot. The order was settled, the way the images were drawn was settled. So it's you look at the majors cards, for instance, and you look at, is this character sitting? Is it standing? Is it looking to the right? Is it looking to the left? Is it active? Is it passive? And it's not so much understanding the meaning by learning them, but it's understanding the coding within the deck itself. And once you understand the coding within the deck, you don't need to really learn the meaning. When you understand the symbols and you can put it all together, right? Which with more modern decks, an author will say, okay, my vision is this. I've put this in this particular deck because I think this is how I see it. So with the Marseille Tarot, you don't have this constraint, I would say. And I think there's something very freeing. Having said that, I do love modern decks. I think I'm the first one to go and jump and spend a silly amount of money on beautiful modern decks. But it's just a very different approach, I would say.
I think you've touched on something that is I find quite important as well. Is that there are thousands of modern decks, and you walk into any esoteric shop that's got tarot cards for sale, and there's a whole range of incredible things. And yet, I always find that if I buy anything at all, it has to have an essence of elegance and beauty in it. Otherwise, it's too well, it's not considered enough as far as I'm concerned. Right? It's too brutal. It jars the nerves, and when you're working with something, it's got to connect with you in a very conducive way, I think. But maybe I'm just kind of really annoying because I'm getting old now, so I just demand more. Yeah. But
We're all moving there, Nat. We're all moving there.
anyway, I like nice things. Oh, and I was just thinking about I sometimes get asked by people to can you read my cards and this, that, the other, and I oblige if that's okay. And I feel that that's something useful for them. But when people sometimes say, well, can you do my tarot because I want to predict this, or I want to know, can we predict the future? I need to know what's going on. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yes. Can the tarot predict the future? Absolutely. Well, absolutely. I think the way I see it is that the tarot allows us to see the energies of the moment, right? If you go with the idea that we can transcend time and space, the tarot allows you to read the energies of the now, and therefore the energies of the now that are going will be able to predict what will happen in the future. So I think there's the true power of tarot is to gain knowledge so you can gain agent, so you can have agency,
Right.
right? So it's about, let's take an example. Somebody comes and sees you and asks, "Oh, am I going to get my? Am I going to be successful at this particular test?" And you ask the person, "Oh, when's the test?" And if the person says, "Well, the test was yesterday," you say, "Well, what's the point of reading the cards? Because you can't do anything about it, right?" But if somebody comes and sees you and says, "What can I do to be successful at this test?" We can then look at where the problems are and what needs fixing, so that gives the best chance possible for the person to be successful.
Right.
So the tarot allows you to read the cards, read the energies of the day, so you can predict what will happen tomorrow. So yes, you can absolutely predict the future with the tarot. It is, I don't think the future is written in stone. I think there are energies pushing us towards a certain direction. I mean, let's talk. Free will is another conversation to be had, but I think fortune telling absolutely works within tarot. You can read the present, the future, the past, and you can also understand emotional blockages, psychological difficulties of people. The If you understand how the system works, it's limitless in a
Right.
sense, you know?
Right. I mean, I also sometimes have the feeling of, I mean, time's a very interesting concept, isn't it? And the more we learn about that thing about time, and
Mhm.
certainly with the rise of understanding reality in different ways these days, that I sometimes feel that not only does tarot help us understand the past and the future, but it also informs the future. And I'll stick my neck out and say that I'm quite a believer in the fact it could inform the past in some way too. So you have that kind of draconian current that flows right between these different positions, and I think that the tarot can act as a conduit. It's a it's a producer of certain energies, and it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. It's something that you do. It's an active principle to make something happen.
Yes, I mean, there's really something magical within this deck of cards. And so I was I was at a conference a few weeks ago at the Occulture conference, and I was listening to a talk, and this I heard this person say the tarot is a book. I mean, we know that the tarot represents the book of the universe, but is a book that lacks binding, at
Right.
the opposition of the Bible, that is a book that is bound, right? So in the Bible, from start to end, we know what's happening. It is, you are within a framework that you don't get out of, right? With tarot, because it's the book of the universe, but they are cards that you can rearrange in different orders,
Mm.
you have the ability to rearrange a story's order.
Right.
And this is where the magic of tarot, I think, really happens. Once you do a prediction, or you realize what is happening in the energies of the present and what's going to happen in the future, if
Right.
you really understand that, it
Yeah.
is totally possible to rearrange the order of things for you to somehow manipulate or change the outcome. It's not always possible, but I've seen it many, many times during consultations when somebody really gets it. And then the outcome of the situation completely changes. Why? Because the inward energy of the person has shifted to a point where the outcome is now different. And
Right.
this can happen in 45 minutes, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Oh no, I can't remember who was that. I was talking to somebody recently. Oh no, it's my mum, my dear,
Ah,
right? And she has, I mean, she's 92 and she has really, I mean, she's an incredibly clever woman. She's had a fantastic life. She's quite forceful, quite scary still. She's great. And sometimes we have lovely conversations. But what she was saying to me, she asked me this question about, so what do you think is going to happen when I die? She's ruminating all sorts of things. So what do you think? And I said, well, I've got this feeling that existing is almost like different vibrational qualities. And I think maybe when we go to another existence, if we want to believe that, then it's almost like switching strings on a cello or violin or bass guitar, and it's operating at a different resonance. And this is why it's so quite difficult to connect in things unless there's certain notes on different strings at the same time. And it's the most crudest way I can put it, Mum. But maybe you'll just shift vibrations,
A higher octave.
a higher octave, or somewhere. And I don't know. And I think that sometimes my view on tarot, and like you say, it's positional, it does things, it changes things, or it helps change you, then
Mhm.
that's what's happened to you. And it comes back to that kind of time shift stuff. It kind of belongs to that same sphere of change mechanisms, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's just deeply engaging, like I said right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, do you think anybody can learn how to read the tarot?
Yes, absolutely. I think learning how to read the tarot, there are techniques, right? I often have. I mean, I love teaching how to read. And to be honest with you, I love teaching more than reading, because what happens is that you get to really see people and get empowered by using this tool, right? So I think anybody can learn how to read tarot if you learn techniques, basics, right? So I was trained as I was a ballet dancer. I danced my whole life, so I really understand what makes an art form, right? Which is you have the technique, and then you have the je ne sais quoi on top of it, which makes you an artist, right? And reading the tarot is the same thing. It's an art form. You have to understand the techniques, how to use the techniques, what does it mean, and by understanding the techniques and by using this tool, you do develop an intuition.
Mm.
Okay. So you do not need to be a psychic to start reading the cards. Anybody can learn how to read the cards. You have to be willing and open-minded. It's like a language. Anybody can learn how to speak a different language. Now, anybody can learn how to swim. Not everybody is going to become an Olympic champion.
Right.
We're all wired in different ways, and we all have strong points and weaker points. And I think even though we can all learn how to read and write, not all of us are going to make a living out of being a successful author,
Right.
So
Yeah.
I really do think that even if you want, even if you're not going to be a successful tarot reader, learning how to read the cards for introspection and
Yeah.
to help you think about something is
Yeah.
a very good and healthy tool.
Right. Yes. And I would argue that they're kind of acts of creativity, right? Certainly at some of its core self. I mean, I do know a while ago now, when I was doing my doctorate, that the only thing I discovered which was any value, which freaked my university out a little bit because, I don't tend to follow the rules much, is that any act of creativity binds your conscious and unconscious self. And then something happens. And that's it. Took me 7 years to prove it, but it's a bit like, actually, not a lot really, is it, in one sentence? But what I do see is certainly by using things, and I like that idea of using tarot for introspection, because that's a hugely creative act of the self. And it's that kind of giving voice to the unspeakable, isn't it? It's that drawing it through in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you look at a card and you don't necessarily so there's two different aspects. When you read for someone, you have to actually put it into words what you're reading. But when you decide to do introspection and you're looking at a spread for yourself, it hits somewhere which can go beyond words,
Right.
right? Because you don't necessarily express it, but you understand it, and it goes to a very deep place. But because you don't have to express it with words, you don't limit this meaning, right? So reading for oneself and reading for somebody else almost has a different level of power, because if you're able to read for yourself, the level of power and change you can create within yourself can be tremendous, because it goes beyond words, right?
Right.
It goes straight to your
Right.
subconscious. It goes to a place where words don't exist, if that makes sense. And it's energy. It's just pure
Yeah.
energy.
Yes. You did mention something about that word, that psychic word, a little while ago. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you believe that most people, or all people, have the ability to be psychic?
Yes, I think so. I think this is a birthright. I think the more we move into in our times, the more people are able to connect in different ways.
Mm.
Um, I think being psychic is not being a mutant. It's not being from another planet. I think being psychic is it's like meditating. Everybody can do it, to a certain degree. Some people are going to be better at it than others. Some people are going to be better speakers.
Hmm.
But I think being psychic is a birthright, and I think this is something that needs to be worked on and cherished from a young age. I think it's much easier to be psychic when you're young than trying to regain it again when you're in your 30s, because then you solidify, and you start believing in things that gets in the way of you being a good psychic. If we were to encourage children to think and to feel the psychic, to be in their psychic awareness, I think we would have a lot more psychics today.
Right.
And people would
Yeah.
tap into their intuition, like if, they would trust it. They would trust their intuition.
Right. I mean, this is why the arts is important. I mean, I'm completely biased, as you know, on that one, but I think that, and even in my earlier days, being a young art teacher in the UK, that I felt it was a real privilege to be the disruptor in the school. It's that allowance to get in touch with who you are, to your developing self, things like this, and to be able to do things in different ways. And even now, as I make things, paint things, etc. I mean, music, this dance, this image making, it goes on in terms of what the creativity is. Um, but I definitely feel that it's true when we start talking about these things as um, they're things that I don't like the word vehicles, but they take us somewhere, and they come from the self, and it doesn't start to form really in your teenage life because we're too kind of forming at a large theatrical way. And then maybe in our 20s, we get into grips with, well, whether we need to conform in some way or not. So there's when we get to our 30s, there's some sort of battle, isn't there, of what's developing and us fighting against that because we believe we should conform. And it's really interesting that that happens. And yet, for some of us, it actually strengthens our resolve in thinking differently and doing things differently and experiencing things differently. The tension, the rift actually makes it stronger. And I think that only happens when you've done stuff and stuff's happened to you. So in your 30s, even to 39, I mean, these days, you get to that kind of interesting point in time where you suddenly have these grand ideas like, oh shit, I'm not going to do this anymore. Whatever it is you're doing, I'm like, no, I tried it. I'm going to do something else. And
Yeah.
it's very common. And I think that it's this kind of relationship with the developing self that we think is developed, and it's just not. We keep going, right? We keep learning new things.
We keep learning new things and we keep going, but I feel like we get to a point in our lives where what we try to do is to learn how to get out of our own ways as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think we try to understand and know ourselves, and we pile on a lot of things which sort of create this persona. And at the end, what we want to do is to understand the essence of the self,
Yeah.
and be in the now, be in the moment. I had to stop dancing for many years because I had knee issues and life took me somewhere else. And I've recently started going back to, just simple, classes, and just for the health of my soul, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because when I found myself back in those classes, I am completely present and nothing else matters. And I kind of go back to this idea where you're completely present and you get out of your own way and you just do the thing that you do and you don't think so much, right? So I think that through life, we tend to try to understand what we're supposed to do and what we need to do and what we need to achieve and what we need to conform or not conform. And I really understand that. I mean, we're two sun in Aquarius, so we're, there's no way you're going to get us to conform, right? But I think at the end of the day, whatever it is, we are learning how to try to get out of our own way so we can get in touch with our own essence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of somewhere on our periphery, we get this yearning for this, keep adding to the, not structure of the self, something to do with the holistic nature of the self, isn't it? The wholeness of the self. And we want to find out what's missing. I think that's what's lovely about being human. I mean, you just reminded me, yeah, we're both Aquarians, probably the greatest sign of the zodiac that you could probably have, but that's just me. I mean, can you use tarot? Can you learn about tarot in conjunction with astrology?
Yeah, so this is, some people are gonna hate me probably for saying what I'm about to say, but tarot before it started to be put in conjunction with astrology and Kabbalah and all this wonderful stuff, tarot I believe was a system in itself, right? And when I say we, when astrology started to be put into tarot as well as Kabbalah, to a point where we had to make it fit and squeeze it in, I think that's to the detriment of tarot and astrology. So astrology and tarot are two systems on their own, right? And they're wonderful systems. Like the 12 signs of the zodiacs are 12 aspects of the self, and we have those 12 signs within us. The 22 trumps, the 22 major cards are also a system. We have all of these within ourselves, right? But these are two different systems. Now, we can understand, the Fool in relation to astrology, but Uranus is not the Fool and the Fool is not Uranus, right? So they are crossovers. They kind of run parallel and sometimes they sort of cross path. But where I disagree is when we have to absolutely make it fit, to squeeze in. It's like, you're going, your foot is a 42 and you're going to get a pair of shoes of 40 because, you like them very much and you think this has to fit, right? So what we end up doing is losing some of the power of tarot and some of the power of astrology. So I believe that, yes, understanding astrology and understanding tarot, there's some very useful aspects into one into the other. But I disagree when we're starting to change card orders because we have to make it fit into the 12 signs of the zodiac. I think this is a step too far for me.
Right.
So same thing with a Sephira. A Sephira is not a card. You know, there's some aspects to help us understand it, but to make them fit to the point where it becomes, unflexible, and I think, to the detriment of the system. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
that
it's
makes sense.
interesting. I mean, I do come across a variety of people that are so keen on making things fit.
Hmm.
And I just sometimes wonder what the fear is, you know. What's that term? Hang on. Procrustean. Is that a lovely word? Procrustean comes from, well, it's a Greek thing, but being married to a Greek thing.
Okay.
You won't mind me saying, but Procrustes used to roam the land and he used to drag round behind, don't ask me why, used to drag behind him an iron bed frame of some kind of, and they used to measure people, and if they didn't fit, he used to cut bits off them. So Procrustean comes from Procrustes, but I think that people sometimes do feel that you have to cut important bits off to make it fit, and actually you lose the value.
Yeah, absolutely. You lose the power in itself. There's which is a bit of a shame. I think this was all made also because there was a trouble to really understand the tarot itself on its own. So we had to find meaning elsewhere.
Yeah,
To create this new English deck. That's so famous, which is wonderful.
yes,
But I think there is a need to go back to the roots. Like all magical things and sacred texts. We go back to the roots and see what was there. And once you understand the roots, then the tree can grow. You can't grow a tree without the roots of things.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not just one tree. It's many trees that create a beautiful forest.
yes,
And so let's not intertwine things where they don't need intertwining. The leaves at the top of the trees can touch each other and communicate,
yeah,
but they are different trees, and I think I'm very I feel very passionately about this, that there is this need to understand the systems and the subjects and for what they are individually before you cram them all together. Because you lose, and I think it's in some ways a little bit of a disrespect to the system itself, if I may say.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody else who told me something recently about sigils, etc. And we were talking about sigils in well-respected traditional books and grimoires and things like this. And there are a few cases of where a sigil is created now that's apparent meaning is this. And somewhere along the line, that sigil has been, I don't think it's been done on purpose, but recreated because of a misunderstanding. And therefore it's lost its roots. But people believe that sigil does this, and actually there's some parts missing, or it's something. So it becomes a new version of something and then brings in a new belief about what that should be in its own power and energy, and it goes on la la la. I'm quite a traditionalist anyway, so I do believe that we ought to take heed of the roots, take heed of where the learning is, you know. We don't all want to be charging around, you know, yelling about this, I know, but I think that it's important not to lose that, because there are still some things in the tradition of how things are born that become lost, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's still valuable.
It's
Yeah.
like knowing our parents.
Yeah.
You know your parents and you know where you're coming from,
Mm.
and therefore you can grow out of that, right? And I think understanding tarot and understanding astrology as well. Same thing with psychology. Like you don't just learn modern psychology or pop psychology without having a proper background. And I think it's the same thing with tarot. When people ask me, well, where should I begin? And I say, well, start from the beginning. How about we start by learning how to read with playing cards, and then we learn how to read with the Marseille Tarot with just the majors, and then we made the major with the minors, and then when you're very comfortable with that system, then we move on to the English school where we have astrology, Kabbalah, and all these things together that create the wonderful decks that we have today. I think it's you cannot. I mean, this is my view, but somebody else might think very differently. I think it's very important for me to understand where things are coming from, and it's the same thing in all magical traditions. You're not going to step into a secret society or a brotherhood without knowing where this magical system's coming from. It's this is my opinion for what it's worth. I believe it's important to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's wise. I think we have to treat things with a certain amount of respect. Otherwise, we need to know that whatever we do, we join in with. We actually joining in. We can't blame it. We made that choice. So yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about art again, the arts, right? I'm thinking about dance. Tell us more about Dancing the Tarot.
Dancing the Tarot. So, Dancing the Tarot is a workshop. It's usually 1 or 2 days that I run. And the way, okay, so this is how it began. I'm going to tell you the story of it. So first, I was a dancer for professionally for a long time. So connecting the body and the voice things is very important for me, because this is one of the ways you make a difference within the body, within energy, without really processing it through the mind, right? And when I started teaching tarot, I was teaching actually at the time in person at Treadwell's in London.
Right.
Treadwell's bookshop. And what I would get the students to do is to draw a card to actually embody the card. So they would take the position of the card, right? Take the position of the emperor. We would use props and all this, to really try to get the imagination of the person. And so the person would sit there and they would see what they would feel through taking the position, right? And so a bunch of verbs or keywords would come up, and there's some emotions, and sometimes would be emotions, things that the person would need to work through, or new meanings would arise. But by getting the person to embody the cards, they would get to actually experience it. So they would never forget the meaning of the cards. Because when you learn something from a book, you have to remember it. But if you experience it physically, you never forget it, right?
Right.
And then I was wondering what would happen if the emperor met the devil, for instance, right? But I felt like I was stepping into a territory which I wasn't too comfortable with, because I didn't have any training to help people if something traumatic would, come out. So it was, I felt a little bit, I wasn't ready to push that. Now, since I've been in Vienna, because I live in Vienna now, I've started to. So I did. I became a coach, right? I'm ICF accredited. I studied. I studied somatic healing, and also I thought that studying systemic family constellation would be useful down this work. So I did all of that, right? And it turns out that systemic family constellation works extremely well with tarot. Why? Because there's a few rules, codes that really go hand in hand. Like, the order of things. There is an order in tarot. There is an order in systemic constellation. Sorry, systemic constellation. There is an order. There's a way we do things. And at the end of the day, we try to heal. So I decided, why not give it a go to actually put the tarot like a theater, right? So I would then get people to represent tarot cards. So then all of a sudden, you have a specific issue that somebody wants to resolve. And we watch the theater happen. We have the devil interacting with the empress, interacting with the wheel of fortune. And so what this does is that it gives us many different layers onto what the person needs to resolve. So you have the information from the technique of systemic constellation. You have a layer of information with the tarot. And so there's all these layers of information. And what we get to do then is that we really get to resolve sometimes a very deep rooted issue, which can go back to a few generations behind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I call it dancing the tarot because, well, life is it's a dance, right?
Yes.
And the planets dance, the sun dances, it's just kind of like spins and spins. And this is what the tarot is about, So in a nutshell, this is this is dancing the tarot.
I mean, I was going to ask you a question about this this technique, but I think the word that springs out to me and captures my mind is that it is therapeutic, right?
Completely.
Extremely therapeutic and healing. And I think when you talk about people emulating becoming the card, then some other things must happen with that person that are not written and unspoken, and yet they are almost waiting to happen. Almost it's there within this symbolic nature of that.
So the beauty of this is that it's you're absolutely right. It's therapeutic. It's healing. It's not predictive. We're not doing this is not fortune telling. This is a purely healing technique.
Right.
And what happens is that because it's not me telling the person what they need to resolve, but because they step into a position that the energy within them or around them or in the system, because we're working within a system, the energy shifts. And sometimes you can just feel it or you see it on people's face that all of a sudden they get it. And the shift happens on an energetic level, on a soul level.
Right.
And it's not cerebral. It doesn't go through the mind. It goes straight into the heart of the issue because it's about embodying the issue. It's about embodying the cards,
I mean, have you found, I'm throwing this in now, but have you found some cards tend to be more conducive to this with people than others?
It depends. I mean, you have some very obvious ones that do pop up a lot, which is, the Empress, the Emperor, which is the mother and the father, the sun and the moon, which is the idealized mother, the idealized father, these sort of things. The wheel of fortune comes up a lot because people get stuck into these patterns, but all cards are very, I use only the majors for this sort of work, because the way they talk to each other is is fantastic. But I think all of these cards are very conducive to understand something about the self. I mean, not long ago, I was in a workshop and I had a person having to embody the moon, and I had literally 20 people on their knees howling at her to understand the energy of the moon. So this is, there's something in all the cards, that they all teach you something. They all resolve something for you, at a certain moment in time for a certain issue.
I mean, this is incredibly rich stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. It goes beyond the ego.
And I mean, I like ritual myself, but I think I love the way that you explain it. It unfolds very nicely, captures your imagination and all sorts of thoughts. I mean, I'm sure that viewers listening to this will want to know how they can contact you. Is that possible?
Yes, of course. And I mean, my website, there's an email address. I'm on Instagram. You just type my name and on Google and you'll find me. It's very easy. I'm reachable. I'm friendly. I don't bite unless you ask me to. But it's, yeah, you can contact me easily. I do give readings. I teach the Marseille Tarot. I teach the Smith-Waite Tarot. I also have some spread class. I have some practice circles. What else do I have? I have some retreats. I mean, we have a retreat in July in Corfu, but that's already full, for July 26th.
Right.
So people can, of course, people can reach me. Go on my website and send me a message. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that at the front of the podcast we have your Insta account and your website as well. I mean, I certainly know that you've got a page on our website, so people come across that, you'll get Adrien very, very quickly. But look, I'm thinking about our time and I'm thinking about our listeners today, and it seems to be coming up to that end point. So on this occasion, I sometimes ask people about music because I know that some people like to say, actually, with where I am right now, with where I am with my work and practice, this piece of music captures this essence, this feeling for me. What would be your answer today?
Well, music is is a way of speaking to the gods. This is what I have to say. we have 7 notes, we have 7 planets, we have, it's I when I stopped performing, I thought I didn't want to stop being an artist, right? Because it's very important for me. So I decided that I was going to learn an instrument that was going to be for myself. And what did I start learning? Well, the ancient Greek lyre.
Right.
Why? Because Hermes created the lyre with the turtle shell and some guts of a cow to give to Apollo to appease his wrath. And I think music as such a way to connect us to these divine energies, which is, whatever you want to call them, God, the universe, or, I think the Greek also had an understanding of the different scales, right? Depending where they would start, they would make you feel something different, right? So I think music is an incredible way to connect to the divine, and also to help you understand, dare I say, if we go further, your different body part, the different energies in the body. We have the 7 chakras as well. And I think music can really help you open up your heart. I think it's an incredible thing. It's a gift from the gods for me.
Right. Well, I think by you saying that, what we'll do is right at the end, we'll fade out to a bit of lyre music. Okay, I think that will be lovely.
Beautiful.
Respect copyright, we won't infringe that, but we'll find some. And then, yeah, what's coming up? This actually, people listen to this will already be in 26. So it's quite interesting. And then shortly after that, I think we're doing something with you anyway, which is in its creative process right now. And then you've got something, what do you say, Corfu, which is full?
Corfu, July 26. Yeah,
Right.
this is already full actually, but we're thinking of extending a bit more. But if you sign up to my newsletter, you'll see all the stuff that's coming up.
Right. Well, I really recommend that, and please do. So for all you listeners out there, we're going to draw this to a close now. So thank you, Adrien. It's been great. It's certainly got my mind whizzing around now. Okay, I'm sort of urging myself, go and finish my work, but all I want to do now is go and pick up my Marseille back. But anyway, thank you so much, and go well, Adrien.
Thank you, Nat, for having me. Thank you. That was a pleasure, and see you very soon.
See you now.
Bye bye.